Greetings ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the channel and to today's video. And it's been a long time coming, but here it is. If you missed it, be sure to check out part 1 of this alternate timeline series video as it sets the stage for the events that occur here. In part 1, we covered the events of the game before Sin's attack on Zanarkand. Some of the key points of the first part are that Auron convinces Jet to stay alive and reconcile with Tidus, Jet taking Yuna to Besaid to raise her and not attacking Yunalesca out of anger for the death of his friends, but rather returning to her to find any hints of how to return to his Zanarkand, which he eventually does. Keep in mind that by this point he has taken the disguise of Auron, so he is not recognized upon his return to Dream Zanarkand. Jet comes across a slightly older Tidus and watches over him as Auron, which is where part 1 ends. After Jet's arrival to Zanarkand, he spends the majority of his time with Tidus. Jet realizes his resolve to train to become better than his old man and offers to train him as his coach. As they train, Jet does his best to hold back from picking on the young boy. So whenever Tidus makes a mistake, Jet attempts to teach him proper techniques instead of boasting about his own skill, but can't help but to make side comments, as is Jet's nature towards his son. He also accompanies Tidus to blitzball games and watches as he grows into the future star of the Zanarkand Abes, yet showing his happiness over the young boy's rise to stardom. During a blitzball tournament, Sin returns and attacks Zanarkand. The events of the attack remain unchanged as Jet knows they must head towards Sin in order to return to Spira, with the duo fighting hordes of Sin spawn to make their way to Sin, and the faith of Bahamut being present to guide Tidus along the way. The events in Baj Temple also remain unchanged, as Tidus still lands there, meets Riku along with the Al Bhed, and helps them with excavating the Fahrenheit airship from the nearby underwater ruins. The next part of the game sees Sin attack the Al Bhed ship to transport Tidus to Besaid, as he wakes up seeing the Besaid Aurochs training by the shore. Tidus gains the attention of the team when he shows off his blitzball skills, with Waka pointing out his skill, and interestingly enough, he emphasizes that Tidus' moves are similar to those of Auron, who trained and played with the Aurochs years ago. Surprised by the mention of his name, Tidus asks him where Auron is and Waka guides him to Besaid, but not before asking him to join the Aurochs as Auron had retired and is training the Aurochs instead. When the two reach Besaid village, Waka shows Tidus around the village and offers him a place to sleep, while Tidus goes into the temple to learn about the summoners and the Yevon religion, similar to the original timeline. When they enter the temple to check on the summoner after a few days, they notice two people in the chamber, a woman wearing a black robe and her famous belt attire, and a man wearing a red robe with sunglasses and his arm hanging on his robe like it was a cast. Tidus recognizes him as Auron, the one who watched over him in Zanarkand. As they reunite, a young summoner emerges from the Chamber of the Faith, having obtained her first Aeon, and begins her journey as a summoner. At this point, Jet has taken a bit of a colder demeanor, similar to Auron from the original timeline, not speaking unless he has to, as he wants Tidus to experience life in Spira largely on his own. However, due to his presence early in the game, Jet introduces Yuna and Tidus to each other and tells her he is Jet's son, to which Yuna immediately expresses her interest due to his stories about Dream Zanarkand's lights and Tidus himself. Immediately becomes her guardian under Jet's counsel. For the most part, the journey remains unchanged, with the party making their way towards Kilika to obtain Ifrit, as well as their battle with Sin and its devastation of the majority of Kilika village, their confrontation with the Kilika goers, who show their admiration for Auron but slam the rest of the team ahead of the tournament. Hello, Sir Auron. It's always a pleasure to be in your presence, but I think you're making a mistake being with these ragtag group of players. Tough talk coming from a team who came to the temple to pray, yeah? What are you doing here? Praying to win this year? We're praying for some competition this year. If Sir Auron hadn't retired, we would consider you competition. But since he's no longer playing, we have been winning the cup every year, and this time will be no different. See you in the finals! This interaction angers Tidus as the goers remind him of his old man, similar to his remarks in the original timeline, but this time in the presence of Jet, who takes notice. The next change happens in Luca, where the Aurochs are set to play the Al Bhed Sykes. Yuna is still kidnapped by the Al Bhed, and they trade her a safe return for the Aurochs throwing the game to the Sykes, which is still thwarted as the group of Jet, Lulu, and Tidus defeat the Al Bhed. Waka and the Aurochs defeat the Al Bhed Sykes in the first round. Due to Jet training the Aurochs prior to his departure to Zanarkand and upon his return, the Aurochs make swift work of the Sykes, instead of the close 3-2 game we witnessed in the original timeline. The Aurochs would still defeat the Goers in the final, as their slightly better stats from Jet's training helps leverage the insane luck the Goers have in the finals of the tournament, along with help from an improved Tidus, winning the cup and Waka retiring to become a full-time guardian for Yuna, leaving the leadership of the team to Tidus in the original timeline. The next arc of the story also remains, as the party travel through the Mi'ihen High Road to Operation Mi'ihen, where they are accompanied by Seymour. When they reach the headquarters, however, they are welcomed not by Wen Kinok, but instead a Ronso with a broken horn wearing monk robe. Yes, in this timeline, Kimahri has become a Maester of Yevon and has taken Wen Kinok's place as head of the Yevon army. Kimahri's personality also remains unchanged, apart from that he speaks a little more as he is now a leader of Yevon and the representative of the Ronso tribe. The operation resumes as the Sin spawn break free of their cage and attack the party. Sin later comes, attacks the combined army, and leaves destruction in its wake. In the aftermath, Seymour approaches Yuna with Kimahri by his side, asking her to allow him to be her pillar of strength, similar to the relationship of Zeon and Yunalesca. Kimahri looks on, seemingly intrigued by the young summoner. Many of the events going forward are the same, with the most notable difference coming from the slight change in tone of Jet's speech pattern as he is now taking the guise of Auron, meaning he has to be careful what he says and how he presents himself, as to prevent suspicion from the party, especially his son, who he fears will hate him if he discovers his true identity. Riku still joins the party after being defeated by Tidus and Waka, and they make their way to Guado Salam. When they reach Guado Salam, they are met by Trommel, who brings them to Seymour's mansion. Seymour shows them the sphere of Zanarkand and he asks Yuna to marry him, which she accepts and tells the group in the Thunderplane. In Macalania Temple, however, we see more of an expanded role for Kimahri, as when the party reach the Chamber of the Faith, they see Seymour praying at the door with Kimahri watching the party from a distance, looking annoyed at the constant sight of them. Seymour engages with the party in combat, but this time Kimahri joins him. After their defeat and Seymour's death, the party are branded as traitors of Yevon and are hunted down by both the Guado, some Ronso, and followers of Yevon. The events at Bikanal Island and Bevel remain as an unsent Seymour and Yuna are to be wed, but when the party infiltrates the wedding with the help of Sid, it is Kimahri who leads the Yevon forces into stopping them. With the help of Valefor, Yuna escapes and obtains Bahamut, where the group is arrested and Yuna is sent to trial. When they meet Seymour and Kimahri again on the High Bridge, Kimahri finally has enough of Seymour after he intends to take Yuna's life as the final Aeon and become Sin himself. And as Seymour approaches and attacks the party, he is stopped by his longtime friend. Kimahri takes a battle stance similar to the original timeline as he buys time for the party to escape, but instead they return and help Kimahri fend off and defeat Seymour Natus. In Macalania Forest, they learn of Kimahri's upbringing. 10 years ago, after he lost a battle and was shamed by his Ronso brethren Bran and Yenke, he left the mountain in shame. He eventually found his way into Bevel, where he saw the monks training. Kimahri sought this as an opportunity to improve his fighting skills, but since the religion of Yevon was yet to accept into its ranks those it considered sub-races, he was rejected. He eventually ran into Seymour, a half-human, half-Guado who was training to be a Yevon priest. The two outcasts befriended each other and Kimahri was offered a place in the Yevon ranks. However, after a while, Kimahri started to learn more about Seymour and grew uneasy about his eventual rise to becoming a maester, but knew he could do nothing as he wouldn't be able to go anywhere else if he chose to abandon him. Kimahri continued to accompany him, even making trips to Baj Temple. This is how Kimahri knows of Seymour's upbringing and how it led to the Seymour we know in the game, but was also biding his time and waiting for the chance to turn his back on his old friend due to his growing evil. Kimahri, now free of Seymour's influence, offers to accompany the party through Mount Gagazet, and tells his fellow Ronso of the situation and to be ready for any Guado that follow the party through the mountain. When they reach the peak of Mount Gagazet, they are once again confronted by Seymour, who engages in a conversation with Kimahri. They threw themselves at me to bar my path, one after another. No. I am disappointed in you, my old friend. You were once the closest of friends, you and I, my closest confidant, and you turned your back on me. I will give you one more chance. Join me. We shall rule Spira together. No, we will defeat you and avenge my fallen Ronso. Pitiful mortal. And with this, Seymour transforms into Seymour Flux and fights the party, eventually losing to them in combat. In the aftermath of the battle, Jet reveals Sin's true nature and continues forward, but not Kimahri, who decides to stay and mourn the fallen Ronso while gathering who is left behind to build anew, and thanks the party for their help. Kimahri thanks you. Kimahri wishes you well on your journey to defeat Sin, and please visit us. The Ronso and the mountain will welcome you. With that, the party continues to Zanarkand, where they come across Yunalesca. They still see the memories that are present in the original game, including the journey of Braska and his party through the ruins. They eventually come across Yunalesca, who declares for Yuna to sacrifice one of her guardians to become the final Aeon. In this scene, however, the party witness another memory that reveals a secret, one that was seen in part 1 of the series, and the party slowly turned to Jet, who has now removed the disguise of Auron, to everyone's shock, especially his son Tidus, upon seeing his father alive. The two embrace, with father and son reuniting, and soon turn their attention to Yunalesca, eventually engaging her in combat, leading to her ultimate defeat. Much of the story remains the same from this point, with the party realizing that Auron was the one sacrificed as the final Aeon so Jet had the opportunity to reunite with his son. And after they infiltrate Sin and defeat Seymour Omnis, they confront Auron at the core of Sin, and he is happy to see his old friend again. "What took you so long, Jet?" You know, I had some errands to run and things to settle before coming back for you." "See." At this point, he turns to Tidus. "And you must be his son, Tidus." "Yeah, and you are Auron. You are definitely different from how my dad is." "I'm sure it was tough for Jet to keep that disguise for so long. He wanted to disguise himself due to fear of how you would react if you saw him alive. I remember when me and Braska found him drunk. 10 years later, not much has changed, it would seem." "What was that?" "Nothing." This must be the summoner Yuna. Braska has told me a lot about you. You are brave and strong to have made it to me. I am afraid my self-control is weakening. Pretty soon I will be in the full influence of Sin. I think it's time we have our battle. Good luck. Defeat Sin for good and fulfill the wish I never managed to complete." Thus, the final showdown between Auron and the party occur, with the party ultimately ending the terror of Sin through Auron and Yu Yevon's defeat, ushering a new era of peace on Spira. But Tidus and Jet still depart due to the Faith no longer dreaming after Sin's defeat, ending the story of Final Fantasy X. And with that concludes the end of What If Auron Had Become the Final Aeon. It is unlikely that this was the story that the game designers of Final Fantasy X would have come up with if they did go with the original plotline that Auron would become the final Aeon. But I enjoyed coming up with the story and I'm satisfied with the outcome. I hope you all enjoyed this video and I leave you with the question. What do you think Auron's final Aeon would have looked like? What changes would you have made in the story? Let me know in the comment section down below, leave a like on this video if you enjoyed it, and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more lore and gameplay content. Other than that, this is Enzo signing out, and I will see you all in the next video.